Welcome back to another video. This is Akhil. These videos are documenting my journey of building the company of Adaro and also trying to understand the nature of the universe. My current mission is to expand the scope and scale of productivity, and I guess the project mission. This is a new one. So if you don't know who I am, um, these things on the wall kind of like talk about what I like to do, or I guess what I'm doing. So yeah, this one is a new one. We'll talk about it later in the video. Anyway, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about in this video. Um, a lot has happened. It's been almost like a month and like a week or two since I filmed the last one. A month and about a week. And yeah, I know that technically the posting date it probably will be a little bit short. Last time it took me like forever to edit and post the video, so probably hopefully this time I'll do it faster. So it'll look more continuous, like only been a month, but technically the filming date was almost a month and a half ago. So anyway, either way, it doesn't really matter. Um, right now, a lot of updates for the business. Uh, for the philosophical tangential stuff, we have a decent bit to talk about. This time I'm going to, in general, just try to make it more business focused and understanding the meaning focused. Not out of any weird things, but not any specific reason other than there's just so much to talk about. Like, there's so many topics that I have to have something to choose from. Otherwise, I'm going to be here for 8 hours, literally 8 hours. I'm not even joking. I probably have 8 hours worth of topics. I don't feel like doing that because most of them are just redundant anyway. Like, they're not really like the topic should be related to the business or understanding the nature of the universe or some mindset thing related to that or some ideology that helps you achieve that. It can't just be like random shit. So yeah. Anyway, let's get on to the video. First things first, obviously the most important thing. Let's talk about the business. Okay. So like I said, a ton has happened. Let's just go from the last video. So officially the day after, obviously, the last video, I was just doing DMs, and then I was doing DMs for multiple weeks, obviously, and then I did get one good lead from the DMs. This lead, I actually was about to do a free trial. I had multiple calls with this lead, multiple. I'm telling you, like so many calls with this lead. They were really like interested, but I guess I don't know. Maybe my website wasn't very convincing, which we're gonna get to in a bit, but basically he didn't think we're a legitimate company. I was like, okay, hey, like usually it's a free trial. Like I was saying, hey, sign up for the free trial. This guy didn't want to give me his credit card to put on the. He didn't even give me the credit card. He put it on a Stripe link. I was trying to tell him like, hey man, like when you put it on a Stripe, like I can't even see your credit card. Like it's a Stripe. Anyway, essentially the lead ended up dying out, but it proves obviously that people are interested, and that lead I specifically anchored at 750. So we'll see how that. Well, obviously, technically, I mean, it's a dead lead in my opinion because he said he doesn't want to do it right now. But you never know. Maybe in the future he'll be interested. That was kind of the synopsis. Obviously, I could go into the details about like how I tried to open up a sub account and all the conversations. It's just like there was a lead, didn't really pan out. Anyway, aside from that, I kept doing DMs. I did 15,000 DMs officially. If you want a quick synopsis, I guess before I get into the details, did 15,000 DMs. Which is the entire country. We hit every single state. After that, I then had a decision to make. Either I do secondary DMs for the entire country again. That'll easily take a month. Secondary DMs meaning I go back through all the DMs that I did and then copy paste a secondary message. So I could do that, but it would take me a month. So I was like, okay, am I going to spend a month on something that probably will have a less of a hit rate than the original DMs? Or do I want to try to pivot to cold texting, where I have a much better runway and it's automated and it takes way less time to hit way more leads? So in my head, I was like, okay, I can always kind of come back to the secondary DMs. Let's just do the cold texting for now. If I'm really not seeing any, like after I do tens of thousands of cold texts and I still don't see any benefit, then I can always come back to the DMs. It's always available for me to do. There's nothing time sensitive in the secondary DMs. So that was kind of the decision there. But either way, 15,000 DMs were done. Obviously, I made a bunch of minor fixes like Yelp and this and that. Okay, and then so last video we were talking about how I got the. I guess I'll put this here for now. So how I got the owner to upgrade to a extended plan for $300 a month. That's how what we talked about, and how I was gonna let her do that, and then I was gonna kind of make her upgrade to a $500 a month plan if she wanted to. Not make her, but if she wanted to stay at that extended plan where I do missed calls, I do the TikTok and all that stuff, then she would have to stay at the $500 a month. But basically, she decided that she does not want to upgrade, and that's fine. But she basically wanted to go back to the $250 plan. So she went back to the $250 plan, and that was okay. But then I basically said after about a week of that, this is kind of fast forwarding a bit. We'll kind of get back to the details of where I was at. But I then said that she has to she has to upgrade to the $500 plan because we're discontinuing the basic plan. So she has to be at the $500 plan. Anyway, we'll kind of get into that. But essentially, what happened is she wanted to cancel completely, and then you know, technically speaking, today was the last day of her billing cycle. But 2 days ago, this is obviously a month ago that she told me she wanted to cancel, or not a month ago, about like 2.5 weeks ago, she told me she wanted to cancel. Literally yesterday, the day before yesterday, 2 days ago, she was like, actually, I really, actually, I'm kind of liking the service. We'll just go back at $500 a month. So kind of interesting how that planned out. Anyway, I guess I'm kind of skipping here, but let's get back to where we were at. This is around the end of November. So yeah, she said she didn't want to upgrade. I had to go through. I had realized that okay, right now I want to switch. I was talking about this before, but I wanted to make it so that I can actually switch on my phone between different sub accounts, between like different spas, my personal account, all of that, so that when I start doing cold text, I don't have to like only be limited to my computer. I can also make phone calls through the business line from my phone, and I can also make phone calls through her spa line through my phone, and I can make messages to both. You see what I'm saying? I want to be able to do that universally. And I also want to be able to get notifications in a central inbox for each of those, right? I want the business notifications to go to a business inbox, and I also want the spa notifications to go to a separate spa inbox, and then I want any other spa notifications that I get to go to a separate spa inbox. You see what I'm saying? And the reason I want that is because that allows separation, clear separation. I can see which one I'm following up with when. I can, make the calls, and I obviously within the same phone, I want it in the same device, obviously for all the major follow-ups, I'm using my computer, but I don't want to, if I'm on the road or something, I don't want to always have to be like, stuck at my computer. So I want to have it on my phone too. So on my phone, I'm able to switch between the spa lines and make calls from different spa lines to their respective clients, if that makes sense. So that took forever to do. Like that took like that was like a 2 day project of just going through, fixing all the exclusionary things, making a new exclusion for spam because I kept getting spam messages. So I made an exclusion where if I notice a spam person is keep on sending messages, I'll just label them as spam. Now it'll never notify me again, and that person is basically put into like a do not disturb category where they will never be able to get into any automations. They'll never be able to do anything in the system because they've marked as spam. So that was that took forever to figure out, but I figured it out. Not forever. Forever in the sense it took me like probably like 45 minutes or an hour. But in my head, forever is like forever in the sense like it kind of took a lot of effort for me to like, okay, I have to go in, I have to do some research, I have to do this. Okay, I have to fix this. Okay, this is not working. I have to fix that. This is not working too. Fix that. Oh, this doesn't work with this because when I do this, this all the shit. I fixed it. It's working now. Simple, simple. Keep it simple. Okay, and then yeah, so basically, I did those notifications. I made those things, and then I started offloading the final things of me leaving Compass. I started like any clients that I've been emailing, I switched that over to a different agent. I have a couple different agents that I'm referring people to. It's funny because I have a bunch of lease listing people that have called me and they're like, "Hey, I want you to lease my house again." And I just referred it to this one young agent. I actually never ever met him in person ever. I just know he's a young agent in my same office. And so I just called him up and I was like, "Yo, no referral fee. You can have all of these leads." And it's cool because I think he has 3 listings now from the leases from my old lease listings. I didn't even ask for a penny, obviously, because I mean, there's not much in lease listings. I used to do them, and for me to ask for something from another young agent, it's like, bro, just keep the entire commission. Like, bro, I'm not gonna. It's like I already know how little you get for a lease. You might only get like a grand and a half. For all that work, you have to drive back and forth. You have to spend gas money. You have to show people. You have to do the contract, and you might get a grand and a half at the end, and you want to give that to somebody else too, a piece of that. Like, bro, that's messed up, honestly. So yeah, I didn't. I just gave them to him for free. So, that's cool. But yeah, I was handing off all those leads, all that shit. Obviously, we're finishing up the DMs here. Exactly right here on 12/4, we finished the DMs officially after hitting 15,000 people in the entire country. So that was cool. But yeah, we just most of this is DMs until here, and then here. Okay, so here's the big thing. So when I went from DMs to cold texts, right now I have to do I had to do this huge setup. Okay, so there's a few things, there's a few variables that I kind of had to figure out for going from DMs to cold text. The thing is, when I did DMs, which is the good thing is I had a lot of testing with different scripts, so I kind of knew what worked and kind of what didn't work. So that knowledge at least helped me in the cold text realm. So I was able to do better cold texts in the sense that better scripts at the start because I already had that kind of knowledge from the DMs. Anyway, getting back to the point. So when I'm setting up cold texts, there's a few factors that I had to consider and how I'm actually going to execute this on the ground. So when I'm doing DMs, I have to go onto Google Maps, reverse search the name onto Google. Like I have to look up in an area, right? Let's just say Los Angeles. I look up med spa in Los Angeles. Then I go through each result, Google the name, and then in the Google results, find the Instagram account, click the Instagram account, go in, copy paste the whatever text I'm using to that Instagram account, click send. So obviously this takes freaking forever, like unbearably long actually, which DMs are crazy inefficient. But for cold texting, you don't have to do all that, okay? There's a thing called Google Places API. And without getting super technical, basically, I mean, it's not really that technical, but just for the average viewer, so that it doesn't complicate it. Basically, this API is just essentially access to the database, Google's database of all these. Like when you go look up on Google Maps, like med spa or mechanic or whatever in a certain location, it'll connect to this database. It'll show you the results, right? And then basically, this Google Places API allows you to kind of directly access those results en masse. Because like when I look it up on Google Maps, I can't copy paste all of those into a spreadsheet, right? That's not possible. But you can with Places API, basically. This is basically connection to this database. Obviously, Google makes it cost money, right? They're not going to just give you all this data for free. What is this? A charity? No. They want to make money, obviously. So basically, here's how it works. Okay. I want to get, for cold texting, I want to know med spas in all the major cities in the entire country. Okay, so in order to run this through Google API, there's well, I know actually there's 55,000 excluding Texas because I don't want to cold text Texas yet, but there's about 55,000 to 60,000 leads in the United States for med spas, tattoo removal, wellness centers, IV drip, and all of that. And obviously, if you want to actually get all of that from Google, it'd probably cost you like $3,000, $3,500 is what I calculated. Probably somewhere close to like $3,000, $3,500 easily to do all those queries and get it for all of the major cities. I think I'm kind of getting off the point here, but basically, the way it works is luckily with ChatGPT's help, makes it easy, but you have to basically kind of write like a code in this project. It's called an apps script. Basically, a code that asks the database exactly what you want and puts it onto a spreadsheet. It's basically exactly what it is. So this code obviously runs basically it's called a query, which means it's like a med spa in XYZ location, Los Angeles. So that would be one query, med spa in Los Angeles. Then however many results pop up, that gets put into your spreadsheet. But obviously you want to have as many as possible for that entire Los Angeles city. You don't want to just have, a bunch of you don't want to have only 25 per city or something. You want to have, if like Los Angeles might have 500 med spas, like in total, wellness centers, med spas, a tattoo removal, all the shit, IV drip. They might have 500 different types of those businesses in Los Angeles. You don't want to just get 50 or something when you look up Los Angeles, right? The way to do that is you have to subdivide every single location in the Los Angeles city. So you have to go in and basically you have to tell the API system you have to tell the API system, I want it in Sherman Oaks, I want it in Woodland Hills, I want it in West Hills, I want it in all the subdivided cities, subdivided little localities, towns, suburbs, boroughs, whatever you're going to call it, of the Los Angeles city, if that makes sense. Well, luckily with ChatGPT's help, it's easy. So basically what I did is I had 6 queries for each borough or suburb or little town. So there would be 6 queries, meaning med spa, tattoo removal, IV drip, wellness center, and I think the last one was like body contouring or something like that. There were 6 queries for each location. So there'd be 6, all of those in Sherman Oaks, all of those in Woodland Hills. For those 6, it would ask the API. And then it would compile all that information for that one. It'll deduplicate it, and then it'll put it onto a spreadsheet. Does that make sense? So, and then I did that for all of every single county and every single suburb of LA at first. We'll get into the details in a bit. But so I did Sherman Oaks, Woodland Hills, like the 50 different little suburbs and boroughs of Los Angeles. Okay, obviously that's not cheap, but Google has this cool thing. It's called Google Credit. It's like a free trial. They give you $300 worth of a free trial just for putting on your credit card, for signing up for this Google API thing. So basically, I did something very questionable, and I gamed the system in order to get all these leads for free. So basically, like I said, the reason ChatGPT helped here is because I was able to within like about 3 hours. I literally just sat down. I realized how good of an opportunity this was, and I was like, I have to strike when the iron is hot. Because the beauty of this is, if I set all these queries up, I can tell the system to auto batch run, which means every 10 minutes it runs a batch of queries, because there's a timeout. I can't just run it continuously, because then Google times it out. It's like, oh, this is too many continuous running. You hit it's called a state. State. It's called a rate limit stop quota or something like that. And you can't run it continuously for too long, otherwise you hit that rate stop limit quota. You eventually hit it no matter how you run it, but if you run it a little bit more efficiently, you hit that quota later. Then it takes a day to reset that quota. But that's getting too much into details. Anyway, basically, basically what it is you got all these queries, right? And you want to have all 6 med spa, wellness center, blah 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 blah, for every single suburb in the Los Angeles area. And then you want to have it for every single suburb in the entire Southern California, and then all the suburbs in the like the middle of California, like Fresno, all that shit, Bakersfield, stuff like that, and then all of Northern California, San Francisco, Sacramento, going higher, like the little farm areas above there too. And you want to have every single suburb of every single state too. Like, I mean, then I went to Oregon, then I went to Nevada, then I went to all of the states, every single one. And basically the way I did this is, I sat down literally for 3 hours. I was like, okay, I got to strike when the iron is hot. I'm gonna sit down here for 3 hours. I'm gonna compile every single query I'm gonna compile every single suburb borough of the entire United States. And the reason I did this is because I realized if I auto batch this, I don't know how long this is gonna last, right? Because I have a credit here. I can keep making new accounts for the $300 credit. I cannot confirm like if Google will stop me and how fast they'll notice. But if I do it quickly with speed, right, and I just keep it running like consistent as much as possible, I might be able to do the entire country within like 3 or 4 days. So if I do it fast enough, maybe Google won't notice. And guess what? That was exactly what happened. So basically, I sat down for 3 hours, and I compiled every single suburb and borough in a list, and 6 queries for every single borough in a list. It was like 8,000 queries long. I copy pasted that onto the spreadsheet, and then I told the code to run that list. Okay, so now this code is running the list, and I created this nice, cool auto batch scraper with the code with ChatGPT's help. And we created this auto batch scraper, so it'll automatically every 15 minutes it'll scrape 6 queries from the Google Places API. No, not 6. Sorry, 20 of these queries from the 8,000 into the Google Places API, and then boom, put them onto a spreadsheet. And then after I have it, after a few hours, I can duplicate those leads. So that means any duplicates, I can unduplicate them into a spreadsheet, and then I can compile a giant spreadsheet, and then I can upload that into my cold text workflow. Okay, and if I compile it, okay, so basically I did that, and I did it in a pretty smart way. So what I did is I realized, so basically one account lasts about basically about 1.75 sessions, which means roughly about 27,000 27,000 before duplication leads. Basically, okay, wait, this is better. Each account roughly will get me about 1,400 queries. Yep, that's what it is. And if I had about 8,000 queries to run, and each account I noticed will get me 1,400 queries of that 8,000. If that makes sense. So now I went through and basically without fail every single morning and every single evening, as soon as the account got rate limited, I would open up a new account under a new email, so I can get $300 free of credits. And then I would run it through. I would copy paste it, run it through the rest of the queries, run it through. And then basically I got to like, out of the 8,000, I got to like 7,500 of 8,000 before Google basically like completely banned my account, like all of my accounts. Like I don't know how, but no matter what computer I use, no matter how, if I use a VPN, no matter if I change the internet, I use like 3 or 4 different devices and I can't get the last account because I would only need one more account to finish the entire 8,000. But somehow, I don't know how, but they know, like no matter what email, no matter how, they somehow figured out that I was like hacking the system, like not hacking, but like gaming the, like the free trial thing. So I don't know how, but I'm not able to do it anywhere, but it doesn't matter because I got 7,500 of those queries done, which resulted in like 55,000 cold text leads for free. So these are all businesses. This is deduplicated. That means no duplicates. 55,000 leads free. So, like I said, my intuition was good because I just hammered it out, boom, 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 and now I got 55,000 leads. So, and we're talking about each one is a business that is either a med spa, wellness center, IV drip, body sculpting. I forgot the last one, but or tattoo. I think tattoo removal was the last one. Anyway, something like that. All six of those, they're all like basically businesses. Basically, the Google Maps, it'll give me the name of the business, the phone number, the website, and address, all in a spreadsheet. And yeah, so once I got all that information, well, I already started doing the cold text before I got all 55,000. The second I got like 1,000, I started running the cold text. But in the background, since it was auto scraping, it was scraping those leads. Anyway, besides the point. So now I got all these leads. Okay, now I'm also focusing on actually building the workflow. It took me a couple days, but I came up with a really good, robust, nice couple split tested workflows that is like basically the second I add these leads into the workflow, they immediately get texted, and then basically I can mark them. If somebody replies interested, I mark them as interested. Somebody replies no, not interested, mark, and I'm able to basically like and I created this so that it's like dated and there's like a timestamp, and it's like kind of complicated, but in what I specifically did. But basically, the result is that now I can look up by any day wherever I did the cold text day, and I can see how many interesteds, how many not interesteds, how many people got on a call with me, and obviously how many free trials I got too. But yeah, so I started pretty small. I did 100 cold texts the first day just to kind of test the waters. Then I upped it to about 200, then 300, and then I did 500. Then it jumped straight to 1,000, and then I did 1,000 for about like 6 days in a row. And then I got a bunch of leads. So, and then day before yesterday, I stopped the cold texting. One, because I have two people that I feel like might do a trial. One already told me that they're going to do a trial. I'm just waiting on their information, like their login information for their like CRM and for their like Facebook and stuff. And then another person was really interested, and he's like wants me to circle back with him next week. He's also pretty interested in starting a trial. He hasn't confirmed yet, but I'm thinking he's pretty interested. So two people. I didn't stop because of that. I stopped because I noticed a major issue that I do need to fix. But anyway, this is kind of jumping ahead a bit. But that's kind of the whole cold text thing. Once I got all those 55,000 leads, now I can pretty much peacefully, for the next few months, at least 2 to 3, I can run 1,000 cold texts per day. And then after that, I haven't really fully decided how I'm going to do lead gen after I run through all these cold texts. But hopefully, basically my math is if I can get 1 or 2 free trials every 10,000 leads, which is so far. So I so far sent 9,000 cold texts, and then so far I've had like 5 calls. Of those 5 calls, I would say 3 were not even qualified, or they just weren't really interested in what we served. They just weren't a right fit. Other than the 2 people that I had, or actually it was 6 calls I think, and then 4 were not interested, something like that. But out of the 6 calls, 2 people were actually like interested, and those are the 2 people I'm talking about. One is I'm pretty much sure that she's going to start a trial because she's already been, she's like in contact with me. She's saying like I'm going to send it to you tomorrow, all the information that you need. I'm pretty sure that's a trial if I've ever seen one. Anyway, I haven't gotten her credit card on file though. I did send the link. She hasn't put her credit card on file, so maybe not, but I'm pretty positive. Anyway, after that, we got, so basically, let's just assume out of these 10,000 contacts, we got 1 trial. That's pretty reasonable to assume because I sent out about 9,000 texts so far, and I got 6 good calls, and I got potentially, at least from the 2 people, I think at least 1 will end up being at least a trial. So, and based on the trial rate, I'd assume at least, it's an 80% trial rate in the sense that like maybe out of 5 people, 1 person will cancel after the trial. But I'm assuming most people after the trial will probably go through and become a client because we offer a pretty good service. So assuming those odds and considering I have 55,000 leads, ideally I can at least get 3 or 4 more trials from these 55,000 leads. And in that case, I mean, at that point, it's less about me prospecting again and more about me just delivering a really good service and then hopefully getting referrals out of that. Because if you get 6 good clients like that, most of these people obviously know other med spa owners. It's not like a siloed thing. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know how I'll play it after these cold text ends. I haven't really fully thought about that yet. There is a few ideas I have and a few things I've been thinking about. But anyway, like I said, let's get back to the kind of where I was at. So we definitely jumped ahead quite a bit. But Yeah, so jumping back to kind of where we were at, we also, during the same time, it's kind of a little bit specific, but I realized something. So, what that one lead taught me, that one lead that didn't do the trial, or not didn't do the trial, but he like wanted to do the trial, he was about to do it. He gave me his login information and everything, but at the end of the day, he didn't want to do it. Like he just basically walked away or some shit. He was like, I'm not interested this time. What I learned about this one lead is that when I was going to do the A2P setup, I realized how annoying it is to have to ask for a business owner to give me their EIN number, their business name, and then run it through, and then there was a typo, so I have to redo it, and it takes 3 more days. It's just very annoying. So I realized the simple solution to all of this is just to run every single A2P through my EIN and my name. And that way, I can actually just I could what I can do is I can always have 2 or 3 backup accounts ready on standby. These are called like the sub accounts ready on standby, so that I can just plug in a new spa whenever. Like the second they decide to do it, I just boom, 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 plug in a new spa within a day. They're ready to go with text messages and everything. And that way, right, the next day, I'm ready. And then also, right, if they ever want to cancel, I don't have to like basically they throw away the sub account. I can just remove their name from it and then just keep the same sub account, put a new spine. Just delete their obviously their contacts and information and all that stuff. All of the pertinent information, delete it and change it to the new to whatever the new spot is that's coming in. It's like a pretty much a genius plan because that allows me to kind of recycle this shit without having to change it every single time. It solves a lot of overhead issues. And I realized obviously technically cold texting is against the A2P rules. So what I did is since I don't want to, since if I'm going to run a bunch of spa accounts through my EIN number, I probably shouldn't also be on the same side texting, blasting thousands of leads with my EIN number. So what I did is I made a second business LLC. And now that business LLC, I got approved for A2P. So that business LLC, I'm going to permanently run cold text from. This is going to be the like only for cold texts and basically like my super super risky account and super risky stuff. The EIN, it's I'm going to run that through that LLC, like just the cold texting. It's the same name. It's one is Adaro LLC, the other one's Adaro Solutions LLC. But this one is just so that even if it gets banned, then at least the spas and the main frame is still fine. I can just get another EIN or some shit. I'm gonna run it through there. But the point is, I don't want to risk any of the spa accounts getting hurt because of my cold texting. See what I mean? So basically, I kind of solved that problem. I know this is again kind of getting a little bit deep into the weeds. I bet you most people are like, well, A2P EIN, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, I know but I have to talk about it. It's very important. So yeah, um, we did a bunch of auto scrub work. Like I said, yeah, you got to make a bunch of workflows in GHL. It took forever. Okay, now we're kind of coming up to the point where we're at now, which is okay. Another big issue. This happened literally this week, and that was the mail system. So similar to text messages, there's a mail system. What I didn't realize is that so basically I was running the mail system in GHL through one of my company emails. And the problem with doing that is a company email by Google is limited to 500 messages per day. And I didn't realize that. So my spa account got basically rate limited for I think like 8 or 9 hours. Luckily it was overnight, so there wasn't that many messages that were sent out. But basically what I had to do is I went through and I realized that, and then now I connected it to a different mail system that is, infinite number of emails per day. And also the most important thing is that I can also connect my domain and then make it I can make it like that for every single sub account. That's what I did. I went through, I fixed it all for every single sub account, so I'll never have this problem again. But yeah, I guess that's also pretty specific. Okay, so and then another issue came up, this time in real estate of all things. Yep, I was leaving real estate and a real estate issue came up. But basically, an old landlord called me and they were like, basically this has been going on for months, but essentially it wasn't even a tenant that I chose. It was a tenant that it just applied, and I was like, and I even told the landlord, I was like, I never met the tenant in person. I'm not sure about this one. It's up to you whether you want to move forward with it. But yeah, this is just the application that we got. And then the landlord decided to move forward with this tenant. And it turns out this tenant basically is like not paying some shit. I don't know. Anyway, something like that. Something along the lines of like they're not paying, they're being a pain in the ass, they're paying super late, and kind of all this stuff. Basically, what I didn't realize, and I didn't know until now, is that the the just clause exclusion that we add, the addendum that we add into the leases, it applies to California, but it doesn't apply to Los Angeles specifically. In Los Angeles, there is no just cause. So the second you get a tenant inside the door, even with just cause, like even if you have a single family house, this is a single family house, you cannot non-renew the lease. They're essentially permanently there. So if you want to get rid of a tenant within 12 months, you still can't non-renew the lease. That's not how it works. Basically, you have to evict them, or they have to leave on their own, or you have to give cash for keys. Basically, Los Angeles has a very strict tenant laws, which actually I think ends up hurting tenants too, because now landlords are like less likely to rent to anybody. I don't know. It's just like they're more likely to keep it empty for 6 months than rent it out if they know that somebody can be there for 5 or 6 months and they should never leave. So I don't know. Yeah, and then I mean I guess in for my case I kind of explained like, hey, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I didn't realize that there was a separation. I thought the just cause meant, yeah, you could just non-renew. But it looks like I was wrong. I told her, hey, I believe you could just non-renew. But I don't know. Basically, she ended up checking with the lawyer, obviously, and then I guess I was wrong, which is fine. And I even called her. I checked with the lawyer on my side, too, just to double confirm. I checked with the lawyer that works with Compass, and I confirmed. And I was like, and I even called her up. The second I knew I was wrong, I was like, okay, I have to admit this. Like, most agents, if they were wrong, they would probably just block the contact and never call her again. But I'm not going to do that. That's not right fundamentally. I was wrong. I called her up. I saw. Yeah, she probably was upset at me because I was wrong. But yeah, I called her up. I told her, hey, unfortunately, you're gonna have to evict this tenant. There is no non-renewal in Los Angeles like that. It doesn't apply that way. You're gonna have to evict this tenant. I gave her the lawyer information the person that I talked to, and I kind of kept it professional. And obviously, she wasn't happy about that. But hey, at the end of the day, I was wrong. I made a mistake, and that's the end of the day. It is what it is. Anyway, it's kind of life. There's obviously I could go more in detail about that, but you kind of got the idea. The gist is, I really didn't understand LA law, which I'm not supposed to because I'm not a lawyer. So yeah. In hindsight, though, I probably should have never even like said what I like. Even though I said, hey, I think it's this way, but you should consult a lawyer. I probably should have just said I should have deleted. I think it's this way, and I should have just said you should consult a lawyer, because I think it's this way is still kind of misleading because I'm a real estate agent. You see what I'm saying? Like obviously, I did say consult a lawyer. Like I didn't say, oh, this is the right way to do it, but still, it's kind of ambiguous. I should have just said consult a lawyer. I have no clue. That's hindsight. Hindsight is 2020. Moving forward, if it's something related to litigiousness, I will. But obviously, I'm not going to be in real estate. So, but even in this, whatever business I do, if it's litigious, let it go to the correct person. Anyway, okay. So this one is kind of interesting too. I guess this is related to website stuff, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is a marketing team. Okay. So, situation with the marketing team. So, in the past videos before, I have said maybe a potential idea was working with a marketer, because marketers know med spas, and then asking them to potentially refer business for either a monthly fee or a one-time large payment or something like that. What I realize now after working directly with a marketing company, not for a referral, but just through the spa, I realized that marketers are not only very inconsistent, but even great marketers have giant flaws that end up giving a very bad perception. And I just don't want to destroy a good, because our system is based on results, our system is based on consistency, our system is based on um, high quality follow-ups that doesn't hurt a brand's reputation. Unfortunately, marketers don't have the same level of care for the product and service they deliver. I'm going to give you an example of what I saw, and it was honestly probably one of the biggest red flags I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was done by a marketing company that I thought this marketing company was a good marketer. Like I really genuinely respected this marketing company because they were really large. They had so many people working at it, like I saw online, and the marketing that they were delivering got a lot of leads, and they were actually good converting leads. So I was like, damn, this is a very nice marketing company. until they did what I'm about to tell you. So they ended this old campaign that was working really well, actually, but they ended this old campaign. They launched this new campaign. This new campaign was the most misleading campaign I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay, it was like a microneedling campaign, right? Consultation and demo session available for $100. Okay, and this has to be the most misleading thing ever. And here's why: because on the advertising, it looks and they're showing like results as if it's like a full treatment, of microneedling. Okay, and all the photos they're showing are like full, nice results, stuff like that. Okay, but the actual offer is literally just a consultation for $100. So it's very misleading to people. Okay, that's one major red flag. Like that's too misleading. There's a little bit of like, okay, like, hey, they give you one free session, but it actually takes 2 or 3 to see results. But that during the consultation they kind of explain that to you. Like there's some little margin of like, okay, hey, that's just normal marketing. Is like, yeah, it's a little bit an extreme version of what's going on. A little bit of a it's kind of like inflating it. But this is just straight up lying to people. Okay, this is freaking lying. You can't. You're showing results as if it's like like a full-on treatment that costs $700, and then you're saying it's like $100 like a thing, but it's actually just a consultation. That's straight up lying. But okay, whatever. That's the first issue. Second issue is this: the second this person like, okay, they're interested in this whatever bullshit, then they get interested. Then the marketing team is sending out automated responses. Okay, automated responses with calendar links. The calendar links have nothing to do with the actual spa's availability or the actual spa's bookings. Okay, they're just sending random bullshit calendar links. Okay, and this calendar link people are scheduling, and it's saying, "Oh, you're confirmed. We hope to see you at the spa," and people are getting so confused, like because like they're saying confirmed, and then I reach out to them because we automatically also reach out instantly the second the lead comes in, and then when we reach out, the problem is that they think they're already confirmed, so they're like, "Oh, we're already confirmed. Sorry, I'm good," and then it just makes it everything super complex. But the times that they're confirming for are non-existent. They don't exist. They're not real times. They don't show up on any calendar of anything. So that is like the second biggest ginormous red flag ever. And a ton of people are confirming, one, for a false treatment, second, for a time slot that doesn't even exist. And I'm over here like, what the hell? Like, how is this like even allowed? Here's the worst part. I brought it up to the owner. The owner was like, oh yeah, this is pretty bad. So the owner CC'd me on the email with the marketing team. So I explained to the marketer, hey, there's this issue going on. And the marketing team, the guy who was representing the marketing team was like, oh, but they approved that campaign already. What do you mean they approved that campaign already? Just because the owner like took 10 seconds and glanced at it, oh yeah, it looks good, doesn't mean you're misleading people, okay? And then for the marketing, then for the calendar link, they're like, yeah, it usually takes 24 to 48 hours to change this. We'll get back to you. Don't worry, we'll have it changed. 24 hours later, I contact them again. I was like, hey man, I still see this thing. People are getting very confused. Like this is not good. Can we please just switch this off real quick? It's one button. It's not a complicated thing. You switch off one button on the automations. Like even I could have done it, but I just don't want to. I don't want to impede on somebody else's system. Like it's one switch, bro. It's one switch. It's an automation, bro. It's not that complicated. And this guy's like, oh, we're still taking. I told the guy, what? You told the guy, dude, it's one button. What? And then it drags on for like 2 days, and it's still not fixed. It's been 3 days at this point, and it's still not correctly fixed. It's still not. I told him on Thursday. It's now Sunday. It's still not fixed. I'm like, bro, what? It's like, how do you do this? And I've emailed him multiple times, and he's like, yeah, we're working on it. Working on what? The marketing campaign, first of all, is bogus. Second of all, the link doesn't even exist. You're sending bullshit. Like what is this, bro? Come on. But anyway, aside from all that, basically what this taught me is that even if marketers on the outside might look good, and sometimes they do get good leads, that doesn't always mean that, like, for example, if a marketing company like this does this to a client, and then that same marketing company now refers my company, how does that make my company look? It makes it look just as shitty as them. It's just like, I don't really want to work with marketers if that's, like, just knowing what I know now, I don't think working with referral partners as marketers is a good idea. There's other companies, though, that are not under the same incentive structure. It's not that all marketers are bad. It's just that marketing does not incentivize high quality product behavior. And the reason this is even happening in the first place is because the reason this marketer is probably, this company is probably just overloaded with tons of people. And their main focus is just running ads, sending the leads, and moving on to the next customer as soon as possible. They're not really focused on like, oh, this customer is like having like this specific problems, and this. That's like all bullshit for them. For them, they care about getting paid, sending out some random ads, leads coming in. If everything is good, that's good for them. That's kind of their main focus. And honestly, it's not it's just not something like. But for example, if I go to like a CRM company who refers instead, like let's just say like a lead, like a CRM company, like like so like Aesthetic Record or something. Like there's 100 CRM companies that med spas use, but those people kind of live and die by their system. Like if their CRM is shit, nobody's gonna buy it. You know what I'm saying? So they're kind of incentivized to have to make it a good product, have good service, stuff like that. So I think working with something like that makes more sense as a like in the long run, compared to like some shitty marketer or something like that. Also, another thing, which when you're having a referral relationship, it kind of goes two ways. Like if a marketer is referring me clients, I'm almost expected to refer them back clients. It's not. It's just like that's just what good business is. You don't want to have a one-sided relationship. Even if you're paying the person for the leads, it's just not respectful to get a bunch of leads, even if you're paying them, and then not on the back end refer them your leads too. But if you're going to be working with a partner where you don't want to refer them leads because they're shit, then you shouldn't even be working with them in the first place. It's just not a. That's just not. That's just not smart. But if it's like a CRM company and I see their CRM is really good, and they're referring me partners, and then people that I know, I'm like, hey, if you guys are interested, this CRM is actually really good. We connect well with it. We use it in the past. You guys can use these guys. They're great. Something like that makes sense. At least they're winning. Everybody's winning in that situation. The customer's winning because they get better lead follow up, better CRM. The CRM is winning because they get paid from me because they're using my lead follow up system. I win because I get to be with a new company, new customer. Everybody can win in that situation. So, yeah, that's kind of the situation there. So, next thing is going to be okay. This was kind of big, and this is website stuff. So, as you know, for me personally, I really hate things that are like kind of like marketing, and not hate, but I just don't find it very valuable and meaningful. Mainly marketing, website building, design, logos, business cards. All this stuff is to me like very secondary. I care about the value that we're creating, the consistency that in delivery, the lead follow-ups. But because of that, I overlooked one thing, and that was when I built our website, I just built a kind of this ragtag. I'm actually going to put it in. You'll probably see a cut right now to a voice recording or a screen recording of me showing my old website and my new one, old website, and then the new website that I just made.
Right. So this is going to be both websites, the old one and the new one, and you guys are going to basically be able to see kind of the difference. And yeah, so this is basically the first website, the original, before I changed it. And yeah, as you can see, this is literally the entire website. So yeah, there's like just kind of like the headline, a quick subtext, basically a couple tiny bits of information, and then a quick form. And if you click on these links, it literally just scrolls. It just scrolls down. You can see it. I click on it, and it just scrolls down to here. I click on this, it just scrolls down to here, and I click on this, it just scrolls down a bit more here. The only different link is the privacy page, which actually happens to be the most detailed thing on the entire website, because I needed this privacy page to get approved with the A2P. So but yeah, basically, as you can tell, this definitely does not convey a lot of trust or a lot of information actually as a whole. So now we can go to the new website, and this is basically the new website. As you can see, it's definitely, I mean, just it just kind of appears a little bit better. But yeah, this is the home page. You kind of scroll down. It gives you a little bit more information, about what we do, what kind of lead types we take, kind of the main selling points of our service. Some, just like some public data, about why lead follow-up is important, and of course, like a call to action here. And the call to action, how it works, just kind of goes to this how it works page, and this is kind of like a full, clear breakdown of everything that is going on in the system. This is like a full, detailed, like kind of overview of everything. Um, and then yeah, and then the contact now goes obviously to an actually dedicated contact page, and then the FAQ has a bunch of frequently asked questions that I get. This is again just trying to help convey trust and more information, you know. Um, but yeah, pretty simple. And then again, the privacy page is pretty much the same. But yeah, in my opinion, I mean, I don't really know since it hasn't been live for that long. It's only been live for a couple days. I don't know how much better it's going to perform compared to the old one. But in my educated opinion, in this basically this lead follow-up service so far, I think this is probably a better site. I mean, of course, it's no Amazon or like Apple.com or something, but for what it's worth, I think this is just going to be better than the old one, and hopefully conveys more trust, so I can get some more clients and scale from there. And also, when let's just say like you're looking up Adaro solutions, right? Like on Google. Right now, basically before and now the only thing that shows up is the website and our and one of the Instagram pages. So when the only thing that shows up is like the Instagram page and a website, right? Like you kind of oh shit, you kind of just like it just looks sketchy when this is the website and there's an Instagram page with like 6 posts. It just doesn't make it makes it kind of looks a little sketchy. At least hopefully now with this that solves the problem. But we'll see. I mean, who knows?
So the importance of why this matters as a whole. So something that you have to also have to consider is, so basically when I was doing my cold texts, okay, people like leads were reaching out to me. They would look up my name and my website would show up, and kind of a pretty bad display of information would show up. So it made us look not legitimate. It also probably contributed to that first lead not working out. So obviously it had to slap me in the face kind of to see this. So many leads were telling me like, hey, your website looks kind of sketchy. And I was like, okay, but we still deliver a great service. Kind of like going around that and hey, talking about the value, the free trial, all of that. But then I realized, okay, enough leads said this to where I should probably sit down and really fix it. So basically, kind of the way I'm thinking about this now is like, okay, it's not about design or anything like that. It's about how do we effectively communicate trust? How do we effectively communicate information in a legitimate way, right? That's what a website is, right? It's just communicating trust, communicating the information of what you sell in an effective and efficient way that actually communicates trust, and it doesn't make it look like basically. So yeah, it is important to have like decent things, but at the end of the day, it only took me like a day and a half to 2 days to actually design this website correctly, and I think it should be done. It should be good now. I mean, maybe my website is still shit. Maybe you saw that video of the after, and you're like, damn, this still sucks ass. Akhil, you're a terrible website designer. And if that's the case, then that's the case. What do you want me to say? Okay. Anyway, but at the end of the day, I think the new one is a little bit better. At least it conveys, like what we do as a service and all the benefits that come with us. I mean, hopefully it's not as bad as the first one in the sense like conversion wise. At the end of the day, it's just for conversions. I just want people to look up our name and not immediately hate what they're seeing. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that kind of fixes it. Um, I was doing some research and I actually saw a competitor in the sense they just do a similar thing, which honestly I don't care about. I don't think focusing on competitors in this type of business even helps you in any way. But I just saw that and I was looking around. I was like, this is pretty interesting. So this competitor has been around for 7 years. Okay. But it looks like this competitor is slightly larger, obviously. They have a pretty decent sized team. Probably have like 30, 40 clients. But what I noticed is like this person wants to do it all, basically. They're a marketer, lead follow up, existing client follow up. They have all of their staff is trained on medical technician stuff and like medical nurse stuff. And I was like this fundamentally is unscalable, like his business model, because you fundamentally how it's going to be very hard to get callers who are also medically trained. And then you also have to do lead generation and make that consistent, lead follow up, make that consistent, and then existing client lead follow up and make that consistent. Like we're talking about like three whole different businesses here. They're trying to combine into one. And it's like the odds of you operationally doing that as one company, unless you're like Amazon or something, unless you're like at scale and you solve one problem really well, then you can kind of move to the next one as well and kind of do that side by side. But if you're like a small company, it just doesn't make sense. You're just going to overload yourself. And maybe that's the reason he's been at this pretty much, been in business for 7 years. And, I'm not ever going to badmouth anybody or badmouth his business, but it's not exactly like he's a large business or anything like that for 7 years. We're talking about 7 years, pretty long time. He started in like 2018, 2019. So it's 2026 now, about to come into 2026. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think, again, it's about simplicity, really, really identifying that scope, and that's how you can create something that's systematically repeatable and scalable. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Maybe that guy's great. Maybe in 10 years I'll still be doing one or two spots. I don't know. Nobody knows. So what do I know? But I just noticed that competitor. Anyway, his site was good though. So I was like, okay, I used that as like a base marker. I used a bunch of other sites. There was another couple sites that I used as kind of like a base marker, big sites, that I was like, okay, what does a trusted website look like? Okay, let's break that down. Okay, a trusted website communicates information effectively. It has good. It's aesthetically pleasing to read. It doesn't look like a fucking newspaper, which I kind of noticed. My old website kind of did look like a newspaper. It just looked like a really messy, janky newspaper, basically, kind of boring. So it has to be kind of aesthetically pleasing. It has to communicate that it's like kind of legit. It has to have like obviously like the regular stuff, a contact form. ideally FAQs so that people with common questions have those questions to be able to answered. It has kind of like a details page, an overview, just like on the homepage. It might just be like an overview, and it also has a very detailed page if you want to see additional details. Just kind of generic stuff that makes it feel like a legitimate business and legitimate website. So yeah, I built all that. It's all done now. Let's see how conversions improve. I can always improve the website. And I'm no coder. So basically, I'm sitting down with ChatGPT, basically going back and forth, working on page by page by page, and then compiling that together and making the website. So since I don't know how to code, that's basically the best bet. The other bet is to use like Wix or some other like website builder. But in the past, I've noticed that honestly, it takes forever, and it's just never how you want it. And it always has that weird Wix logo. It's just weird. So I just don't like website builders. It just always looks too, I don't know, like weird. It just doesn't look right. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, I feel like, website wise, we're kind of good. And I probably reached the same point like 12 times, but hey, that's life. Okay. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is another headache with leaving Compass. So I was leaving. I'm done with Compass. Technically, I'm left already. They already gave me back my license or whatever it is. I'm not with the broker anymore. But basically during this entire process, I was trying to download my data off of Compass. Obviously, I was super busy with other shit, so I wasn't really focused on it. I told them I wanted to leave by the end of the year. I didn't want to leave immediately, but I guess my office manager took that too literally, or I don't know what she did, but I said I leave by the end of the year, but she just kicked me out immediately. Like, okay, and then it completely deleted, like not deleted, but it refused me access to my Compass account to download. Kind of like the reason I want to download the information off is because at least I can have, if somebody asks me like, oh hey, can you pull up the old lease or something or old transaction documents, I can pull it up. But now at this point, I can't pull it up because I don't have any access. So it's been like fucking hell to go back and to talk to the Compass support. The Compass support has to get approval, and then they have to come back to me. They try to come back to me, but the account still wasn't working. And then they called tech support. Bullshit, bro. Bullshit. First of all, I had 2 days. It's honestly my fault. I thought I had until the end of the year, but if I had realized I only had 2 days to get rid of the data, I would have done it immediately. But yeah, I guess that was my fault for not realizing that. I thought they were going to give me until the end of the year. I can kind of peacefully, maybe during the holiday time was coming up in a couple of days. I can just sit down. Okay, what do I need? What do I not need? I need this. I need that. Okay, let me get rid of this. But they didn't give me that opportunity, I guess. So okay, now we're officially caught up to today. That's pretty much everything that's going on in the business. You heard from, we were at the DMs, we finished all the DMs, the cold texting, all the system related to cold texting. Oh shit. After that, we got all those problems with the GHL or the system, updating the system, separations of the system, all this stuff. Potentially 2 clients or 1 client. We'll see. I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. I'll probably do more cold text because the reason I stopped the cold text is so that I could do the website building. I could finish that, and now I can kind of get back to the cold text, and that allows me some time. I might get back to the cold. I don't know. It depends on if that lead sends me her information. She sends me her information tomorrow, like the login information and her CRM and her Facebook and all that stuff. Then I'm going to take that. I'm going to integrate that into the new sub account, and then that's going to be the kind of the main focus of tomorrow. If not, we'll get back into cold text, maybe 5. I'll probably do less volume because I don't want to get too many leads, because the problem is you get too many leads and you can't service any of them. Like if I try to set up too many people at once, then it's just gonna fuck me. It's like it's gonna be a bad situation, right? Like honestly, as it is, 2 leads at the same time would be pretty terrible. Hopefully, it's kind of spacing itself out naturally. Like I get this person, they kind of let me on board over tomorrow, day after, and then the next person, if it is, then is the next couple days after. That way, I'm not like chaotic as hell. Ideally, and then also the plan is ideally if I can get 1 more spa, because this person signed up, the current spa owner, like I said, she wanted to cancel, but then she signed up again basically for $500 every 4 weeks. So I'm assuming she'll at least stay for another month or 2. Not sure, but I'm assuming. If that's the case, then if I get 1 more spot, I'm going to start asking that, what's her name, the virtual assistant to start helping me, just slowly by slowly, second spot, slowly helping. Maybe she'll start with messages. The goal, obviously, for the virtual assistant is very slowly. She'll kind of just take over my entire job. By slowly, I mean probably over the course of a few weeks to a month. And basically, obviously, the goal is I will, I'm going to start with her, kind of see where she's at, how much she needs to get paid, how everyone can kind of meet their budgets. I have a budget in mind. She has a budget in mind, or whatever it is. We'll kind of figure that out. Then I'm going to, if she agrees and everything's all good, then we're going to figure out, obviously, how exactly we're going to make this work. So in terms of all the tasks that I do, what can she do? What can she not do? All of that. And then slowly by slowly, we're going to document everything I do. We're going to make that into a very simple written down SOP and make sure she understands it. And then slowly by slowly, I'm going to do it in front of her. She can watch. Then she's going to do it in front of me. Then I can watch, obviously, make sure she's doing it right. I can make corrections or whatever. She's going to do it on her own. I'm going to see the recording, see if they're good. And then if she can do it on her own, that's good. And that's great. Then we can kind of move from there. And obviously, we'll do that for one thing at a time. We'll start with maybe just messages. Then we'll do like the secondary calls. So not the primary calls, but the secondary calls. So less people answer those. So she can start on those. If those look good and everything looks good, then we can transition to just doing all of the calls and all the messages. If all that looks good and all that's going good, she can transition to doing the daily reports too. And she can get a couple dollars for the daily report, all of that. We can figure that out and structure that so that she's getting a good, amount every single day. I'm getting what I want, and everybody's happy. So that's kind of the goal there. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how ideally, yeah, but that ideally happens when I get the next spa and I have 2 concurrent spas paying. Like if it's just a free trial or one spa is if one spa is on a free trial and one is paying, still not yet. It's not worth it. Once I officially get a payment, 750 or 500, 755, so right now I'm 500 here, ideally 750 here. If I get that concurrently, then I can start offloading some work and then get my 3rd client, 4th client, whatever it is. So yeah, that's pretty much everything going on in the business. Now we can kind of get into all the tangential philosophical stuff. All right, so on to the other tangential stuff. So the first thing is, most of these tangents, like I said at the start of the video, are going to be more related to kind of like understanding, it's kind of more related to stuff that actually matters rather than just like random things. Not because I don't want to talk about random things for any particular reason. It's just that if I could talk about random things, I could talk about a billion things, in which case the videos would be like 12 hours long, and there's no point in having a 12-hour long video. So I'm going to talk about things that actually like relate to, improvement, better understanding, incorporating to ideology, stuff like that, to understanding, just business stuff, all that stuff. Anyway, so the first thing is going to be this. We're going to explain what this means. So I'm going to read it out loud. Make one avatar reliably productive by removing execution latency and inconsistency from their revenue critical workflows. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so the reason I even bother making this, is because this is a bit abstract. To expand the scope and scale of productivity is a bit abstract. It's not like it's not the goal. It is the goal of the company. But the current project of the company that we're currently working on, the main focus is helping one avatar be reliably more productive, right? One avatar being wellness centers, med spas, just that, like these types of like businesses, helping them be reliably more productive. That means basically consistently and reliably they are more productive than before. And we do that by removing the latency. So this is kind of important, but the exact definition of latency. Okay, so latency is the time and energy delay between ideas and their result. So time being like you want something to happen, like the latency is you want something to happen, and then between you getting what you want, there's time and energy in between that. The amount of time and energy is like latency, basically. So a practical example would mean if you want to watch a movie and you wanted to watch a movie like 30 years ago, you might have to drive to a movie theater, wait in the movie theater, wait in line, sit down in the little seat, wait for the ads to play, and then you get to watch your movie. There's a lot of latency there. Nowadays, you just look it up on Google or on Netflix, and boom, you have your movie. So there's a much lower latency, right? Time and energy delay is far less. That's basically what latency is. So in this case, we are removing and reducing execution latency for the spa, right? Basically, there's a lot of work and effort that the spa has to put down in order to do all those follow-ups. We're offloading that and making it simple with our system, okay? And inconsistency from the revenue critical workflows. So there's a lot of inconsistencies that obviously spas and all these people have in their revenue critical workflows, which is lead follow-up. Lead follow-up is a revenue critical workflow. For every lead you miss out on following up with, that's potential money that is being left on the table. So basically, the current project is to make one avatar more productive reliably, right? And what do we mean by more productive? What we mean is by removing or reducing the execution latency and the inconsistency from their revenue critical workflows. So that's the current project. I just thought that would be kind of helpful to kind of identify the main thing that we're currently working on. So yeah, next we're going to talk about iteration being the universal force multiplier. And yeah, so what do I mean by this? So iteration is very interesting. So I realized something. So if you really look back, okay, between like the years of like really anything before, basically, if you look back between like the years of 800 to like 1600, the amount of change is very low. Why is that? Well, fundamentally, the amount of change could have been higher, but there was nobody iterating. See what I'm saying? See, I took this thought experiment to the maximum. Let's just say you put one man in a forest, and this man could not die, and he had 1,000 years, and his sole focus is just to iterate, right? He could not die, but he's limited to like, he has to sleep, he has to eat, he has to do this like normal shit, but he's not going to die. Like if he experiments something or tries something new and it blows up, he's not going to die. He gets a retry there, right? Just one man, if you gave him 1,000 years, within the first 50 years, in just a forest, and he was focused on iteration, right, and creating new innovation and creating new things, and actually solving problems. This one man, probably within the first 50 years, if he was actually focused, could build like he could probably start getting into like metalworking within the first 50 years. Maybe the first 150 years, after about 150 years, he starts building like maybe mechanical things like clocks, stuff like that, like consistent metal works, stuff like that. And give maybe 300, 400 years, maybe he's starting to build like a steam engine. Maybe he's starting to build an actual engine, like a combustion engine. Maybe he's starting to build, like things that could, like a coal-powered engine that could potentially power a rail system. We're talking about one man here. Now you give him 1,000 years, right? Maybe he's already at the 1950s, 1980s. Maybe he's starting to build, like actual cars, computers, stuff like that, like really base level stuff. You give him 2,000 years, you already have him. One man could potentially put you in a modern age. Now you give him 5,000, 6,000 years, one man could potentially now build autonomous robots that do work on his behalf. So now he can scale productivity. Then this one man now becomes almost like an entity of productivity. Okay, and this is just one person. So now you realize, okay, most of human history is missing iteration. It is only in the 1900s where people were forced to iterate. Then, when people were forced to iterate, basically because of major wars, World War I and World War II, and then just the economic system forced iteration and innovation. And then once it was forced, then people began expecting it. Like now in the modern age, if things are not improving, like the iPhone is not improving year by year, people are like, what the hell is going on? See, it became almost expected that things have to improve and things have to get better. But back in the past, that was not the case. Right? You go to year like 1200, the main thing is like people didn't understand iteration as a concept. Like if something worked, people thought, okay, the gods favored that. Like if a cannon somehow worked, people thought, oh, the gods favored that cannon. That's why it actually shot the thing. The cannons that the gods didn't favor blew up and killed the guy trying to make it work. So that's kind of how they thought. So iteration wasn't even a concept. But if iteration was a concept, we would have gotten to where we are significantly faster. Okay, so what does this matter? Why am I even bringing this up? Well, as time progresses, you need fewer and fewer people focused on iteration to really change the world as a whole and to change the things at scale. Because, like I just explained with that one person example, but all that required in that one person example is the person could not die, right? And the person was focused on iteration. We could focus on iteration. The only problem that needs to be solved is dying. If you solve the dying problem and you solve that for a billion people, think about that. Now you have iteration times, you have that one person times a billion. Now a billion people have a potential to innovate different things and apply them at scale. We're talking about the amount of like civilization scale within a short period of time. We could be scaling like multi-solar systems within the next couple hundred years. If you consider iteration, if you remove the death factor, you solve so many problems, because death really is a huge problem, because when you die, you lose all the knowledge that you learned from the iterations. And even though you can document that on a piece of paper, the problem is a lot of times you can't document fully exactly, because a lot of these things are very specific. And I'll give an example. Something that's very specific is like running a large finance. Let's just say the U.S. finance system. It's a very complicated system. Even if you understand it theoretically, to actually you do it in practice, you need experienced individuals who have been working in that for years in order to actually understand, okay, when this happens, you do this. When this happens, you do this. It's the same reason why experienced fighters do so much better against a non-experienced fighter, even if they both on paper have the same amount of knowledge about fighting. Is because experience gives you something that we can't replicate that. It gives you rules of thumb. It gives you like patterns of thought. It gives you like when stimulus response, you can't replicate that stimulus and then you think and then you respond 100% accurately through text or through. That's why not everyone can be a billionaire, because not everyone has gone through all of the forcing functions and incentives and learnings and specific knowledge in order to execute at scale. You can, if you choose to, do all those things and force yourself through that path, but otherwise, you could just read it in a book. Oh, he did this, 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 this. You can understand what he did, but you could never, if you don't apply that and you actually go through the specific knowledge chain, you're never going to actually do it. So in the same way, if you solve death, you effectively remove a giant limitation upon iteration and scale. And you make it so that if you remove death for even one person, you make it possible for civilization to explode like crazy, especially when you start bringing in autonomous robotics into the picture. But now you multiply that by thousands or millions or hundreds of millions or billions of people. Now we're talking about like insane civilization level scales, which is, I think, the goal eventually. So, um, anyway, I mean, I was hopefully somebody decides to solve the death problem. I feel like right now people are too focused on trying to do it within the same human body when the human body has so many limitations. Like fundamentally, honestly, like for example, what's his name? I think his name is Brian something. This guy is trying to like solve like health, but like making his body healthy by like doing different types of injections, doing different types of chemicals, and really just trying to make the body last as long as possible. But I feel like the problem is you cannot solve the body with more body work. You know what I'm saying? You solve the problem of death by removing the body as a whole. Like you don't need such a weak like a vessel. Like it's a very weak vessel state. A human body is very weak. You get stabbed, you die. You get a heart attack, you die. You get in a car crash, you die. Like that's, and then you have an age limit, and it's just this is not a very structurally strong formation to understand the nature of the universe. We should be focusing on how can we maybe like transcend this vessel state in order to prolong our life indefinitely. Like if you could maybe transfer your consciousness into like an electronic thing, and then keep that as like in a cloud, for example, and then you can have like remote controlled like little like maybe humanoid robots as your living, I don't know, person or something. Now we're getting into sci-fi shit, but what I'm saying is solving death is not, you're not going to solve death by fixing the body. You're going to solve death by overcoming the body as a whole and all the limitations of it. The human body is so like has so many limitations. I talked about it before, but like you have to eat, sleep. It's just like a lot of limitations. Hopefully somebody decides to solve it, because otherwise, I mean, I don't know. Like in the next 10 years, hopefully Adaro is successful. But if nobody has solved it by that point, then I basically am obligated to have to put my head into the problem and figure out a way to help solve the problem, because that is the next biggest problem. Like 10, 15 years from now, if nobody's working on it, that mean, and if I have the means and ability to do it, that is the next biggest problem. Ideally, I mean, it's a very annoying problem because then you have to define, okay, what does I mean? What is the idea of me? We'll get into that a little bit later in the video, but like you have to kind of define that. You have to. It's a little murky. It's a lot of gray area. People are going to hate you for it. The people, like especially religious people, are going to be like going crazy, which is fine. Who gives a shit? But yeah, it's just an annoying problem. It's an annoying problem. I hope somebody solves it so I don't have to. And yeah, but if 10 years from now, 15 years from now, nobody's solving the problem in any meaningful way, and I have the resources and the means through Adaro, then I have to do it. There's no other option. Akhil is the one who has to, not like me specifically, but like just the company has to invest resources into solving this problem. Whether I'm dead or alive, somebody in the company has to invest resources in solving this problem. If 10, 15 years from now, still nobody's doing it, somebody has to do it. So yeah. Anyway, okay. Next we're gonna talk about is, okay. So Alex Ramosi says brand over everything. And I kind of was like thinking about that. Okay, so what does brand mean, and where does he mean that? Okay, I mean, I might be wrong because I don't have Alex Ramosi's experience, but I feel like Alex Ramosi means brand over everything in commoditized markets and markets where you're not on the frontier of technology. Here's what I mean. A brand matters a lot more, like when you're in like a clothing brand, for example, it matters a lot more than, for example, Nvidia. Nvidia's brand is primarily based on being on the cutting edge of technology. NVIDIA's brand means nothing if they don't continue to iterate. For example, if NVIDIA stops making better GPUs and stops making better systems of AI computing, NVIDIA is no more a great brand. But for example, if Louis Vuitton, it just consistently sells the same products, their brand power still gets really better because they're consistently selling expensive, high luxury goods that give status. So their brand is very important. But for NVIDIA, the brand is basically built upon their ability to iterate and make high quality products, right? So I feel like brand over everything, it makes sense when you're talking about a commoditized business, because And then the only separator is brand. Between water bottle companies, the only thing you look at is brand, obviously, because you care about trust, reputation, quality, stuff like that. But when you're talking about like a performance or like something on the cutting edge, when you're talking about like, okay, which rocket are we going to choose? You're not really caring about whether the brand is Blue Origin, SpaceX, or any other company. You're caring about which one performs the best for the best cost. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like when you're talking about brand, you're talking about you're talking about associations to uh, a company that make people want to buy your product, which I think matters a lot more in a B2C context than a B2B context. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But that's just kind of what I see. And I feel like brand matters a lot more in solved games. I feel like when you're talking about unsolved games, what matters more is how can we expand intelligence? How can we increase the human capacity? Like how can we solve these new problems at scale by creating new solutions, creating doing things that have never been done before, and actually solving the problem in a new systematic way that has never been done before. That is what actually matters, not necessarily branding. I feel like I feel like I feel like brand is kind of like a revenue defender rather than a revenue creator, if that makes sense. Where it's like, I mean, it does create revenue because people want to associate with your brand, and that creates revenue, obviously. But what I'm saying is, it's more of like it's basically like it's getting you away from the competition in a way. But I feel like when you solve a new problem, you alienate the competition by solving a problem that has never existed before. I guess they might be two variations of a similar thing, but at the end of the day, I feel like when you're talking about branding, you're not actually moving humanity forward when you're talking about branding. You're talking about how can we make people perceive us as better than the competition instead of how can we solve a problem that nobody else can solve yet at scale, which I feel like is a better problem to solve. Because if you solve a problem that nobody else has ever solved at scale, then you create value that never existed before. If you simply brand an item better, you haven't really created much extra value, in my opinion. But anyway, this kind of gets into my next point, which is I feel like most businesses don't fail from a lack of effort. They fail because you're choosing businesses that have no levers. For example, if you choose to start a restaurant, you basically have no lever. Like anybody can sell food. Many people make good food. It's such a commoditized business that like you basically have to rely on stupid things in order to be successful, like trends or fads or like branding in the sense like kind of like making it look like you're better than the competition. But in reality, like what is so different about you're just selling food at the end of the day? And it's a very commoditized business. It's already solved at scale. There's nothing really new to do that is going to really bring value to a consumer or to anybody or create new productive value in the world. Essentially, it's a zero sum game because there's only so much food that can be consumed per day. Yeah, you can argue that more people equals more food and more and over time people consume more food because they're able to waste more and eat more because people have been able to eat more calories over time. But still, it's really there's a limited amount of food that can be made. If the guy across the street closes down, you get his business. You see, if you have two sandwich shops, if the guy across the street closes down, you get double the business. So it's almost like you're incentivized to destroy the competition in a weird way. But it's not like that when you're solving a new problem. For example, when you're talking about my company, I'm not incentivized to hurt any competitors because we're not even working on the same thing. You see what I'm saying? I'm working on my thing. I'm incentivized to solve my problem better, and they're incentivized to solve their problem better. And that's it. Like you see what I'm saying? Like there's no I don't hate them because they exist in a completely different realm. Like they're just we're solving different problems and we can both grow and we can both be happy. Like I'm more focused on solving my problem, he's more focused on solving his problem. You see what I'm saying? It's not like if he loses, I'm not gaining anything. If he wins, I'm also not gaining anything. It's just cool. Who cares? It doesn't really matter to me. But in a zero sum game, like especially in real estate too, real estate is a zero sum game. It's like if that person didn't exist, I might have gotten the listing. But because they exist, they got the listing. You see what I'm saying? It's a very weird like it's not a the incentives are weird. You see what I'm saying? Also, what I noticed is that in those types of businesses, it's very hard to pull a lever that really like what is the difference between you and another person? Honestly, not that much because you can't really do anything different in the business. The business is already established. It's already commoditized. Like what are the real levers you can pull in a restaurant? Like you can maybe change up the food, okay, you can change up the branding, okay, you can change up the marketing maybe, but really at the end of the day you're delivering food as a product and you're delivering it as a service. People are going to pay you. People can get food from anywhere. It's how much can you revolutionize it before consumers don't even understand what you're selling anymore? You see what I'm saying? In the same way in real estate, you can't really package it many different ways because consumers are kind of expecting a certain thing. You kind of have to fit within those lines, within the small variations that don't really affect your business in any marginal real way. So in the end of the day, I think I guess the point I'm trying to make is that in general, I feel like more people should turn towards unsolved games, like things that are like creating new, establishing. It's not about the new ideas because anybody can make an idea. It's about taking that idea and actually solving it at scale consistently. That's the hard part. And I feel like if that's if more business owners put their hard work and effort there, they'd be way more rewarded than trying to start like a restaurant or some shit like that. All right, let's go into the next topic. This is gonna be a really quick one, but what I noticed is even greater than peer bias. So what we talked about last video, we talked about how peer bias overrides introspection because peer bias being the people around you overwrite your own introspection because your brain naturally picks up on what they're talking about and it automatically basically it makes you more interested in the topics that they're talking about and less interested in what may not be relevant to that group. In the same way, um, what is greater than all peer bias, what is greater than all family bias and society bias is actually mating bias. So this is actually interesting because if you study this, if you research this a bit, you'll actually see that, well, at least to my understanding, that your brain in evolution has favored those who try to obviously uh, pander to their mate more, be more like their mate, have more interest aligned with their mate. So in a way, the bias that a potential mate has over you is far greater than any peers, any family, or any social, people that you might meet, because you're evolutionary programmed to want to be more adjusting and with this person, like kind of aligned with this person, so that you actually have the ability to make children in an evolutionary sense. Because if you're not aligned with this person, if you're not interested in the same things or whatever and whatever, then you may not ever have children, and that is very bad for evolution, obviously, because then you would not, continue the species. So basically, the synopsis is that it's actually the most important thing is not just peers, but also it's very important that you don't choose an improper mate or fall into an improper mate trap where you're thinking about the same things as a potential as a as a as a not that great mate. You know what I'm saying? If you pick a not that great mate, you're going to end up thinking in similar ways to them because naturally your brain is evolved to pick up on their social cues, kind of go with them, whatever their interest is, kind of mesh it. No matter how how strong you are as a person, no matter what you do, there's an evolutionary programming aspect that will make you kind of push what your interests are, what you think about on a daily basis. If you're thinking about productivity, scale, and leverage, and you meet somebody who's not completely interested in that, and they're not interested in any of that, and they're interested in like kind of partying and stuff, odds are, no matter what you do, you're going to be kind of pulled into those types of things. You're not going to be as focused on what you were originally focused on because mate bias is very real, and I'm not speaking from experience. This is all obviously because I haven't had any of this in firsthand experience, but from what I've seen, this is purposeful, obviously. No first-hand experience on a purposeful note because I understand this. I'm going to be very, very particular. But what I'm saying is, mate bias overrides introspection, and it's even stronger than peer bias. So, next topic. I hope that was very clear. It probably was, and I probably circled the same point 12 times like I usually do. So yeah, next one is living is a program distortion. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Okay, this is actually a very interesting topic. So, the idea of I and the idea of living and the idea of a life that is continuous is actually an evolutionary phenomena. What I just said probably does not resonate with anybody because I have to kind of break it down a little more. So, what do I mean by this? Okay, so when you wake up, you feel alive, right? You feel like you're the same person that you were yesterday. Obviously, same in the sense that obviously you may have changed, you may have adapted, you may have gotten smarter or stronger or whatever, but you're the same person as you were a decade ago or whatever, 5 years ago, right? You're the same person. Like the person is obviously you may have changed like personality wise, but you're still the same person, right? Well, fundamentally, that's actually an evolutionary phenomenon because the atoms in your body are consistently cycling, every single thing, including your bones. The atoms are actually constantly cycling, right? And basically, if you look at it, like 1 year from now, it's like 98 or 99% of your atoms have actually changed. So from an atomic level, you aren't even the same person anymore. Okay, why does it matter? Who gives a shit? Well, what does I even mean? So, oh my god, I thought these hot. This was way right here. Bad perception. Anyway, I basically is a evolutionary evolved trait that basically the reason that it exists is because in the past, whenever somebody believed that they existed, they were continuous, then they were able to plan. They were able to, gather resources. They were able to, like store stuff and plan ahead and think about the weather and how it's going to affect their future and how their mates and how their kids are going to, everything's going to happen. They were able to think ahead if they believed in I. If they didn't believe in I, you'd act like an animal. You don't really feel continuous. You just exist, like stimulus response. Any creature that felt I then felt okay, like the planning and all that stuff. So the idea of consciousness and the idea of I is actually just an evolutionary program thing. It doesn't actually exist in reality, is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's actually completely programmed. And I said the same thing like 4 times, but you don't actually even exist because you're actually constantly changing on an atomic level. The only thing that stays the same is the memories that are firing. It's just a neurological pattern. Technically, the electrons that are firing are actually changing too, but they're not. It's not the same electron firing, but the pattern of electrons stays the same, and that's what makes you feel like you because you have your memories or whatever. But at a base level, what you call consciousness is just your brain kind of assessing its limitations. This is me. This is my body, and then it has this like pattern of electrons, which is like your memories and your thoughts and your actions, and then that continues to stay, even though the atoms actually are changing throughout your body. It gives you the illusion that you are continuously the same person and still alive. But actually, you are not the same person, nor is it continuous. That is just an evolutionary trait. You are constantly, technically, not even the same person at all. Um, which then makes you question, like, okay, so if I took all of the electron patterns in my brain and I could simulate that in an artificial way, is that me? What is me then? And then it makes you ask, okay, people keep talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence, where it gains consciousness. Okay, but what is consciousness? It's the idea that there's a limit, like, of my body. This is me. Otherwise, if there's no limit of your body, then what is me? Is everything me? No, obviously it's limited to your body. Okay, and then it's basically a stimulus response. Like, I am the person who does this, but this is good and this is bad. When this happens, it's good. When this happens, it's bad. And then I have this ideology. I have this certain ideology. But when you apply that to like an AI, then the AI has no semblance of like what is me, what is not me, because there's no boundaries, there's no physical boundaries. And then the AI is also, it has to understand its personality, but it's given equal access to all information. So it'll keep questioning which information is better or worse because there's no, you'd have to, it wouldn't make any sense. It would actually be a very inefficient AI if it believed it was alive. Like, think about, you're programming an AI, you're basically programming an AI with all the limitations of a human, which doesn't make any sense. It would be actually a very stupid thing to do. But you could do it because, okay, if you could, in theory, if you had enough compute power, you could create the same way our brain exists, where certain things feel pain, pleasure, all this stuff. It's just a signal firing, right? So you could, in theory, create a simulated world inside like a computer, if you had enough compute, and you could have a little AI uh, with the same like same kind of signals as our brain, like as in like there's pain, there's pleasure. When this certain action happens, there's pleasure. When this certain action happens, it's pain, and you could create that, and it'll subjectively feel alive. That thing, that AI character that you created there with its own thought process and patterns. When you punch it in the game, it feels hurt. It'll have the same signal in its own little AI compute system. That, oh, that's pain. Subjectively, it'll have the same reality. If you punch it, it'll say, hey, stop, that hurts me. If you kill it, it'll say, please don't kill me. But what that is a subjective reality. You see what I'm saying? That is subjective. Like, you could create that with enough compute in a simulation. It's not. Uh, but see, here's the thing. That does not mean we are in a simulation. See, the problem is, because you created a simulation, that does not therefore infer that the entire universe is a simulation. That would be stupid. That's like, that doesn't make any sense. That is a terrible inference. It's the same thing that nihilism does. Oh, because I don't understand why the universe exists, it must not have any meaning. It must not have any semblance. Therefore, nothing matters. That is a terrible. You're taking a very a finite construct and applying it to the entire universe, but you don't even know. Like, you don't know. You simply don't know. The answer to nihilism is that you should have rational optimism. You don't know. How do you know that if you don't? How do you know that you can't understand why the universe exists? How do you know? Like, how do you? Maybe your current brain can't, but if you modify your brain and change the atoms at a molecular level, who said you can't? The technology may exist. You don't know. Nobody knows. I guess I'm kind of veering off, but the point is, subjective reality between you and that AI would be the same. But the true reality is that it's kind of just a distortion anyway. Like, it's just an evolutionary distortion meant to propagate the species. The formation of I itself is just a form that exists to help propagate the species. Past that, it has no meaning. So consciousness itself is just an evolutionary trait. It's nothing special, it's nothing crazy. What is interesting is our ability to understand and our ability to project ideas into reality and then therefore change atoms. That is the only interesting evolutionary, that is the only thing that is truly valuable in any sense. But at the end of the day, the universe would have created that statistically on an infinite, because there's so many. It probably exists in many, many places, but that's, I guess, besides the point. So that is basically the entire thing of living. I guess that was probably really complicated, or very, not complicated, but just me explaining it was not very succinct. But living is kind of a program distortion. What does this actually mean for you? I guess at the end of the day, like I said, for the immortality thing, or for solving death, how do you solve it? Can you consistently make the version of I continue to exist? If I is an evolutionary trait, does it really matter? And at the end of the day, for me, what I thought is the most important thing at the end of the day is that an entity understands the nature of the universe. It doesn't have to be me, because me doesn't even exist in the first place. The point is, if nobody is creating a solution for death, the first priority is to create an entity that cannot die and wants to understand. The next priority is then solving death for me personally, like as in for humans personally, to try to solve death and help understand. But first priority is creating an entity that continues to understand without dying. Because humans themselves, like I is an evolutionary trait. That's not the important thing. The important thing is that something understands. And it doesn't need to be me, because if you keep focusing on me and I and this evolutionary distortion, you dilute yourself. You dilute the thing. First, you have to focus on understanding. Let an entity focus on that understanding and compounding and iteration. An entity must exist that focuses on that. And then we can focus on how we can modify ourselves to also be, able to understand and push forward. I hope that made sense. It probably doesn't, because I probably don't even fully understand it. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, let's go down to the nihilism thing. So this is kind of supposed to be a separate topic, but nihilism is basically the belief that because the universe is so vast and so many things exist and it's all infinite and we are just a speck of dust, therefore we don't matter and nothing matters and nothing we do matters. And that is a terrible way to look at the world, and it's an incredible talent waste. And the reason is because you're applying a finite amount of knowledge that you know to the entire universe. You cannot apply a finite level of knowledge, right? You only know this much, and you're applying that to the entire universe. It's like it's kind of like where David Deutsch says not everything is rationally explainable by math, because the universe is not math. Math is just one way to interpret the universe, right? It's like a language form to interpret the universe, but not every single thing is solvable by math. So if you run into an error or something that's not fully solvable by math, sometimes the solution is not only to look at the math and try to solve it, but it's also just to, okay, what test can we run? What explanatory knowledge can we let's kind of find out that explains this, that then we can maybe interpret with math later. But math is not always the solution to every problem. And just because something is not 100% provable with math or 100% like figured out with math does not mean it doesn't exist, or it does not. You see what I'm saying? It's like just because you build a computer and you can kind of simulate the world does not mean the world is a simulation. That would be a terrible way to look at things. Just because you built a human built a computer that simulates the world, that does not mean the world that you live in is a simulation. That theory is stupid, because you built a thing. You're taking a narrow set of thing and you're applying it to the universe. That's just bad ideology right there. But nihilism does the same thing. Because we don't see anything that matters. Oh, we don't matter. No, what you should be doing. The thing is, oh, it's super vast. We don't know. The goal should be we should try to understand. Not nothing matters, but actually what we do does matter. Because how do you know it won't matter? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know that if we can't modify? How do you know we can't molecularly modify ourselves at a very base level to then transfer it to a different form so that we can understand the nature of the universe? How do you know? You can't say that. You cannot, because it's not against the laws of physics. If it's not against the laws of physics, how can you say that we can't do it? How can you say that? We built cars, we built all these things. If you zoom that out, we can build even greater things, even greater technology. Maybe it doesn't happen tomorrow. Maybe it happens 100 years from now, 250 years from now, 1,000 years from now. But how can you say that there's not a way for us to help prolong our life, maybe in that prolonged lifespan, help innovate different technology in order to modify ourselves so that we can understand the nature of the universe? How can you say that that's not possible? Nobody can say that. You can't do that. Like, nobody can say that it's against the laws of physics to do that. Nobody can say that it's not physically one. Nobody can say with 100% surety that that's not possible. That would be a terrible scientific explanation to say that it's not possible. Therefore, nihilism is a joke and should not be. It's a waste of talent, because if you adhere to nihilism, you adhere to nothing matters, and then you end up doing things that are for pleasure or for things that make you happy. But none of those things actually move understanding forward. You should be moving towards understanding, not towards being happy. What is happy? Happy is an evolutionary trait. Happy is happy means your evolutionary body sees a signal, things are good, therefore it lowers the stress levels, therefore it gives you pleasure. That is not happy. That is stupidity. What matters? Understanding, not happy, not emotions, not nihilism, none of this stuff. Understanding, iteration, finding the meaning. Next topic. So first one is, this is going to be have to kind of fast because it's like 9 p.m. now, and I've been filming for a while. So first thing is, advanced economies tolerate a large amount of deceptive and low value work because the productive core is extremely large. So in the modern day, people actually have the ability to not be that productive. And what I mean by this is, the vast majority of people and companies are actually not productive in any way, shape, or form. What do I mean? There are very select few companies that massively produce, while the rest of the world is essentially not productive. I'll give you an example. Boxing. Boxing is not productive in any meaningful way. It doesn't bring humanity forward. It doesn't give us new explanatory knowledge. It doesn't allow us to, feed ourselves better. It's just a distraction. Everyone who participates in boxing is actively hurting each other, like long term. People who are watching it are wasting their time on something that's not productive, which is just people fighting. Nothing of value comes from two people fighting. And then, on top of that, the people who sponsor it, mainly gambling companies, are actually sponsoring people losing money, basically. They're promoting people losing finances, which actually hurts productivity. But most companies, not most, but a lot of companies are like that. You look at like sports, you look at like pretty much every public facing thing. A lot of public facing things are just about capturing value and not actually increasing productivity. Even many businesses, like a lot of like med spas and stuff, they use pretty deceptive marketing. Like the example that I showed you. Like if a lot of spas and a lot of companies I've seen in my experience do this type of thing where they really deceptively market. They claim one thing, do another thing. So they're basically just scamming with extra steps. But the market, the economy is able to basically absorb all those losses because it is so hyper productive on the other side. Like there's so much productivity in terms of like, well, even as simple as technology allowing farming production to like go crazy, technology allowing, the amount of materials and stuff to be produced. It's just the amount of productivity is so high that it allows so many people, like even streamers, for example, what productively do they produce? Nothing. But it allows so many people to do unproductive things and still make money because the core engine of productivity is so strong. But in the past, if you were not focusing on productive things, like if you go back 200 years, if you were not, farming, or you're not doing something productively every single day, you didn't have food to eat. But now you could do so many things. You could scam people. You could be a streamer. You could do this. You could do that. And none of these actually produce anything, but they still make money. So basically, point is, advanced economies in the modern day have gotten so productive that they actually are able to tolerate a lot of inefficiencies in the marketplace. And one inefficiency that I'm about to get into is a huge thing that I notice, but a lot of great young talent is going into essentially value capture and non-productive businesses. For example, let's look at Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is an exceptionally smart individual who really gamed the system of YouTube and gamed the system of algorithms. And really, his entire company is just focused on maximizing YouTube's algorithms. And that is actually a very respectable thing. But here's the thing. It's a huge waste of talent. Think about the amount of money, time, effort, like everything, resources that he's spending on gaming a YouTube algorithm so that more people watch his video, which is just whatever it is, the content, so that he can basically pump more ads and then funnel more money. That's essentially what it is. What is a video? The only way that a video makes any money or generates revenue is because you capture attention, which you can then monetize by having sponsors on it, right? Or putting your own business so that somebody has to monetize those eyeballs. That's the only way to make money. Otherwise, there's no way to make money. That's the business. So basically, Mr. Beast is hyper obsessing over how can we distract people so that we can monetize them more, which is fine. But imagine if that talent was used on hyper obsessing over how can we solve, a disease? How can we solve robotics? How can we solve these productive industries that actually move the humanity forward? If he was hyper obsessed over those, like if more people were hyper obsessed over those, the world would be a completely different place. Imagine if he was hyper obsessed over, sending rockets to space, or like Elon, or solving a crazy big tech problem, or just like anything that is more productive for the world. We're talking about he personally would be worth billions more dollars, because being productive value, it allows you a huge lever compared to just, hyper monetizing advertising. Basically, it's just a marketing company. He's a hyper attention capturing marketing company. It's great for like attention, and you can get a lot of popularity that way, but you're not really changing the world in any meaningful way like that. Like it's very replaceable. Anybody can find entertainment. If Mr. Beast didn't exist, some other entertainer would. It's just like it's a very replaceable thing. You're just hyper engineering what? You're hyper engineering stimulus response. Humans want to, get dopamine from watching a video, and then people serve ads during that dopamine, from watching the video. Then you can monetize that and get money for that, and that's what you're hyper engineering. So it's a huge waste of talent, really. Like think about it. If Mr. Beast, I already restating it now, but Mr. Beast, a lot of these guys, it's a huge waste of talent. Like, and it's just kind of sad to see that. I mean, it just is what it is. At the end of the day, um, I don't want to restate it too much because I know I've been doing that too much. But yeah, and also if you look at it and you analyze kind of the businesses that a lot of these guys get into, like when you kind of analyze it, like Mr. Beast got into making chocolate, but why did he choose chocolate out of all things? Well, because there's not really much you can monetize with that type of audience. Like, can you really take that audience and put it into anything productive? Could you get them to buy something expensive? Not really. And also, like, the problem is when you start to go with chocolate or something like that, there's already incumbents existing. You're not really adding any value to the market. Like, what is the difference between Mr. Beast chocolate and like Hershey's? Not much. I mean, it's going to be the same chocolate. Okay, maybe this person gets it from a different location, or this person uses different types of labor. Okay, that's great. But at the end of the day, they're incumbents, and they already have scale. They already have distribution. They already have branding. They already have decades of experience. They can price you out of the market. It's just there's not really a point in competing. Like in the long term, you have to keep promoting your product. If Mr. B stopped promoting his chocolate tomorrow, sales would drop. And basically, he's running in a cycle. It's like okay, it's great, but it's like on the outside, it looks like it's really nice because he's getting money, he's got fame, he's got everything. But on the inside, it's like for that amount of effort that he's hyper obsessing over attention, if he hyper obsessed over anything else, he'd be able to build a company that's long term. It's a system that continues to work. I'm not hating on anybody. I completely respect it. Again, super respectable how much he's hyper obsessed. He hyper obsessed like crazy. It's like it's insane. It's amazing. Super respectable. Amazing guy. But that specific thing, why on that specific thing, I don't know. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. Obviously, I could go into like the details of why I think fighting against incumbents like Prime and Lunchly and Mr. Beast Feastables, like going against Lunchables, going against Hershey's, going against Gatorade is a pretty bad strategy because again, you're going against people with really deep market understanding. They have scope, scale, and distribution. These are CPG products. It's just not. I don't know. But anyway, I could go into details of it, but it's really not that important. It doesn't relate to finding the meaning. Just understand a lot of young people get into these because it's so promoted, like being like a streamer or this type of thing, that a lot of young people that have really great talent. Same thing with sports, really. It's a lot of like think about it, like Kobe Bryant, for example, or LeBron James, or Michael Jordan. They spent so many years hyper obsessing over shooting a ball into a net, and they have trainers, physiotherapists, they have coaches, millions of dollars of people around them, their team, everything, all so they can put a ball in a net better, so that more people watch, so that they can run more ads. That's basically what it is, and more people show up to the place so they can sell more tickets, basically, and sell more merchandise. Like think about if those people had spent all that time and money and resources obsessing over problems that productively solve the world, like solve problems in the world. I feel like like sports are great, but the amount of talent and resources and effort that goes towards it. I mean, if I were to recommend to anybody, I would recommend if you're a young person watching the video, never get into sports, never get into anything public facing. It's just a waste of talent. Like, what did you gain by shooting a ball in a net better? Nothing. You gain nothing. You literally get nothing. You got paid, yeah. So anybody can get paid. Did you solve a problem at scale? If no, then why? Anyway, um, as for okay, now this is interesting. Now you look at okay, who has the ability to move atoms at scale? See, on the outside, Mr. Beast and like Jeff Bezos, for example, they both look successful. In fact, Mr. Beast, he has all the popularity, he has money, he has people want to be with him, he has CEOs that are talking to him all the time, he has all this stuff, and then it looks pretty similar for Bezos. In fact, he has less popularity. He might have more paper money, but other than that, it doesn't really seem different. Okay, but now if you really get down to the nitty gritty, who has the ability to move atoms at scale and create innovation at scale? How much innovation in atoms at scale can Mr. Beast move? Not that much, actually. He has obviously a promotion engine, but that's mainly targeted towards kids. There's no systems around it. Now compare that to Amazon. How many atoms could Amazon, like, if he wants to innovate in a different way, how much change could he make in an industry? How much innovation could he bring to an industry? How much, new solutions can he bring? For Jeff Bezos, is massive. Like, he can literally change an industry and solve new problems, like in a way that nobody's ever imagined. If you look at an Amazon warehouse, you see the robotics, you see the new technology, you see the problems at scale that they're solving, you see the automation, you see everything that they're doing. It's actually really insane what they're able to do. Whereas, like, obviously on the outside, it looks like they're both equally successful. It looks like they're both great. But on the true, like, systems level, who can solve problems at scale? There's a clear discrepancy. And at the end of the day, if you're just trying to optimize for, like, external factors and external, like, looks and, like, oh, I have money and this and that, then yeah, they both look on paper pretty similar. But the truth is, if you want to optimize for understanding, one is completely different. One is a systems building, and another is kind of attention gathering. And yeah, I mean, and if we want to even break this down further, if you look at Mr. Beast and you look at Disney, right? Disney, like, when you're talking about Mr. Beast's brand, how many thousands of dollars are you willing to spend with Mr. Beast's brand as a consumer? Not that much, because it's kind of just his brand is kind of built on, like, attention, like doing crazy things, stunts, like, things that haven't been, like exploring the pyramids, doing crazy big games, giving away lots of money. This is all, like, it gathers a lot of hype and attention, but how monetizable is that compared to, like, Disney, right? Disney has a system. They have characters, they have storyline, they switch up the characters and they switch up the wrapper, but people are willing to spend thousands of dollars a year on Disney, whether it be merchandise, going to Disneyland, spending money on, just like being associated with the brand, having, watching their movies, Disney Plus. People are willing to spend thousands of dollars with their dollars, thousands of dollars of their money in this type of brand compared to Mr. Beast, who arguably has more attention than Disney. People are not willing to spend as much money on this type of brand just because it's based on short-term attention, not long-term emotional, like, attachment. And I feel like eventually Mr. Beast will probably have to, because, like right now there's a scope and scale, there's a limit to how much, because it's just operationally insane what Mr. Beast is doing, like, for the long term, like on an infinite time horizon. If you think about it, like, consistently kind of trying to not just one up yourself, but, like, also, like, trying to just do crazy, stunts. Yes, you can try to keep doing new and new things, and, sometimes, cheapening the cost of the video by doing different things that are also crazy. But at the end of the day, it's very operationally complex for any company to run that way. So eventually, you probably will expect a drop off in views, but for something more structurally stable like Disney, an emotion, character, storyline that you can just change the wrapper on, like Disney does. They have the same pretty similar story. There's a character, they have a problem, they need to, do something, whatever it is, and then they eventually go through a lot of hardship, and then they get what they want, and everybody's happy. That's basically every Disney story in one form or another, and it's just they change the characters. Well, it's like it's Cars, or it's, whatever Disney Pixar movie, or it doesn't really matter. But you could change. They change it from princesses to this to that to this. They change the wrapper, but at the end of the day, the storyline, the incentives, and the structure stays the same, and they're able to monetize that. And it's not connected to one face, obviously. But this is, again, kind of getting into the details of, like, okay, entertainment businesses, value capture businesses, how much you're able to monetize them. It's not that important. In a general sense, both of them are just value capture businesses. They're meant to capture and then monetize value. How much does that really help people in the long run? Like, how many problems does that really solve? Not many. How does that really, like, change humanity at a humanitarian scale? Not really. Does it help understanding in any meaningful way? Not really. It gives people an emotional out, but do you really need to spend billions of dollars for that? Not really. I mean, sports are just as interesting. Like, in college sports, the skill level is not nearly as good as NFL, but people still watch it. Why? Because at the end of the day, sports is not about how good the player actually is. It's more about, like, just based on the other players, how close the competition is, people, like, riling against a side, oh, I'm on this team, you're on this team, ha ha ha. And then when their team wins, they're happy. It's not really about the skill of the players. I mean, it does matter, but for example, in F1, if you really looked at it, do people actually give a shit about, like, oh, this guy was 3/10 of a quicker there, that's why this car is better here, and the aerodynamics here is this is not people watching F1. They care about the close racing, the drama. This guy got over on this guy. These guys are having a rivalry. It didn't really matter how skilled they were, or how much money was spent. It kind of just matters about, the rivalry and all that. But that's what I'm saying. When you put all this talent into something as simple as that, it seems like a talent discrepancy. You don't need that much talent to accomplish the same goal. The same goal of having, like, an emotional out for society, like through, like, sports, like fighting or this or that. It doesn't require the best of the best talent in the entire world to accomplish that objective, is all I'm saying. But in the end of the day, that's basically the entire thing. And yeah, I guess those are all the major topics. Again, there's again, like I said, like 1,000 topics I could talk about, but these are kind of the most relevant to understanding and pursuing systems, my ideology, the fixes that I'm making in the business. So overall, that's pretty much where we're at. We kind of went over all the fixes in the business. We went over iteration being the most important thing. We went over different types of businesses. We went over how mate bias was more powerful than peer bias. We went over, how living is kind of like an evolutionary, trait that was kind of evolved, and it's how it's kind of a little bit of a distortion. It's still like obviously very important. I care about me, and I care about the idea of myself. But at the end of the day, the focus should be understanding as a whole, not just limited to one identity or one me or this or that. It should be understanding as a whole and an entity understanding over just one or the other person or like the idea of I understand. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, and then we talked about how nihilism is a huge talent waste. We talked about how there's differences between commoditized businesses and like business, like branding. We talked about how brand is different than like innovation, stuff like that. Um, and then obviously we talked about um, the talent waste that goes to like entertainment and value capture businesses compared to productivity businesses. And that's pretty much the video this time. For the next couple of weeks, kind of looking forward to. Hopefully, we can get another spa client. Ideally, that's the. Hopefully, that person gives me their information tomorrow, or the day after we set that up, and hopefully, I can get my second spa and I can start scaling it up and get that lady to work as a virtual assistant. And so far, the system has been really good. The uptime of the system, in the sense that like uh, how like the amount of failures that we had is very low. Like it's a very robust system. There's not a lot of places where I've seen that it kind of fails. Like we're having very consistent follow-ups over every single day. There's not any time where the system failed and then I wasn't able to do follow-ups for multiple days or something like that. So the uptime is very good. System is robust. I fixed a lot of the major issues that I've seen. There have been tons of iterations done, so I really feel confident in the system. Now it's just kind of transferring that to another spa, seeing how it works there, make sure the transferability is easy. I'm sure I'll learn a lot. I can fix this, make it more efficient on this side, that. But yeah, that's just kind of like the main thing, transferability. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just interested in seeing that kind of growing the business and going from there. So that's basically everything that's going on. Um, yeah, expand the scope and scale of productivity, find the meaning, and let's go. Let's do it. Solve those problems. Let's do it.